First of all, we're not clear. It's our fire. I mean, you're jumping ahead of what the reality is. Let's wait and see what exactly happened.
You issued a warning to evacuate the building. Presumably, you issued
Correct.
a warning because you were going to fire on the building. Did you check whether it had been evacuated?
Let's be clear here. We don't know exactly what happened. I don't know exactly what happened, and neither do you. So one has to be a bit more judicious before making that sort of assumption. Can I say the following, though, if you'll allow me, please? There are two examples, not that Israel says so. There are two examples of UN facilities being used by Hamas to store munitions for their terrorist war machine to fire their rockets into Israel. The UN Secretary General himself released a statement, and I can quote if you'll allow me. He said specifically that those doing so are endangering the lives of innocent civilians. If Hamas is turning UN schools into areas where it conducts its war machine, its terror war machine against Israel.
And the UN also
the UN Secretary General,
over the course of the day,
primary responsibility rests with those terrorists. We don't want to see any fighting around UN facilities. Unfortunately, the terrorists have forced that fight upon us.
OK, the UN told us that it tried to coordinate a window with the Israeli army for civilians to leave, and that was never granted. Now, either the Israeli army is not speaking to the government, or else you're calling him a liar. Which is it? My
information is that Israel agreed to a 4-hour period for a humanitarian corridor, and that was disrupted by the Hamas terrorists themselves, who didn't want to let the terrorists leave.
So you knew there were children in that building?
That is a consistent pattern of behaviour by the terrorists who deliberately want to leave civilians to protect.
You knew that that was being used as a shelter by people fleeing the fighting in northern Gaza. You knew there were women and children who had come there to seek shelter.
We've been asking people to leave.
And you knew that they hadn't been able to leave that building.
Once again, you are making presumptions based on information that you have or have not, or what you're suggesting that information you have. We don't know that for a fact.
If after the fog of war has passed, this does turn out to be the fault of Israel, will you pause? Will you reset your rules of engagement tonight?
Our rules of engagement are very clear. One does not target civilians. One does not target civilian infrastructure. That is clear, and we hold ourselves to the highest standards.
But that's not working, is it? If it's not designed to hurt civilians, your strategy is manifestly not working.
We are trying to be as surgical as is humanly possible in that difficult combat situation. But don't deny my country the right to defend itself from those terrorists who are shooting rockets indiscriminately at our cities.
A very effective defence system. It's called the Iron Dome. It stops you, for the most part, being hit. They don't, and they're paying the price with their dead children.
No, Hamas is responsible for the Israeli casualties and for the Palestinian casualties. Why is this conflict persisting? Because Hamas refuses to accept an Arab League ceasefire proposal.